Hi students, I'm coming at you from Outdoor Office, and I want to share with you this really cool photo, drawing, piece of artwork from one of my really good friends here in Moab, Amy. So any guesses as to what this is? We'll look at this too, maybe at our live lesson on Friday, but this is the human gut. And it's really neat. I mean, if you can get in to see some of this intricate artwork, the way that it swirls around, it's really cool. Really neat little diagram. So why would I start this lesson with that picture? Well, we're learning a lot about how food works. And so I want to share this is one of my favorite books from a former student, actually, but it's a bunch of infographics on different foods and how they work. And so yeah, we were talking a little bit about low-carb diets. I was talking with a student about what would it take to cut out your carbs. And you guys all know a really cool way to test for carbs if you've done your lab report with the indicators of macromolecules using iodine. But so carbohydrates ultimately get broken down into glucose, which is what your brain uses for fuel. And so the idea behind something like a keto diet is breaking down fats and actually using those ketone bodies to be used by your brain. So it's a different method of dieting or nutrition, having some restriction about your diet to try to figure out what's going on in your body. And so that is a segue to talk about one other option that you could have for your experiment, and that is here, the My Body, My Experiment. So you can look at any one thing in your life, be that what you eat, your sleeping habits, your drinking habits, how you focus yourself, like creating a to-do list. I was talking to Liliana today, and she was asking more about how to do this experiment, so I wanted to clarify some things. You can choose any one of these and then make an observation based on what you want to change in your life. What do you think it's going to affect? And you want to do a little bit of background research about that, so you can look at blood pressure, heart rate, productivity, and school. Here's an example for you. Is a teen get acne? And then what are you going to measure? How much acne you get based on the different amounts of water that you drink. She thought maybe it has to do with water. Okay, and so then down here, collect your data. Your independent variable is that thing that you change. So if every day you drank a different amount of water, or if you drank the same amount of water, but you did it for different days, that's your independent variable. And then the dependent variable is what you go out and measure. What effect you think it has, and then you would write it there. You might have to change this table based on what you select. Okay, and so on that note, this is really exciting because I got my results back for my pretest. So I wanted to first see before I changed anything about my diet, and if you guys remember, I was trying to cut out sugar. I wanted to see what my gut bacteria looked like before I changed anything. And can you think of what that is called in a scientific experiment? That is your control group, or your control, what you're comparing your baseline to. So here I'm going to download my data. This is the results of all the species of bacteria that were in my gut. And it maybe just looks like a bunch of nonsense here. But here's the name of the species of bacteria. Here's the parent. So this might be like genus, species. This is a bigger umbrella, and that includes, so proteobacteria includes one of these more specific types of beta proteobacteria. Firmicutes, Tenitricutes, actinobacteria. And then it tells me a couple things. The count, so that's how many of them they found. So I can go through and I could actually sort this based on how many are here. Let's see. Okay, so I do kind of wonder how you all feel about using Excel, but I'll show you a little trick here. If you go to Data, Sort, and then you want to expand the selection, but I'm going to sort C based on this. And I could actually sort Z to A, expand the selection, and that's going to go highest now to lowest. So rank, this is another cool science connection. Remember phylum, class, order, family, genus, species? So which one of these is the largest? That would be the phylum, or the kingdom, I suppose, if we include that, is the biggest. And there's how many different kingdoms? We have 3 kingdoms, bacteria, archaea, or 3 domains, bacteria, archaea, and eukarya, and 5 kingdoms. Those kingdoms being Animalia, Plantae, fungi, protists, and Monera. And then here is a good way to see that hierarchy: domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Okay, so if I go back to my data, it also shows me the percent. So I don't know where the other 0.01, that's not within the kingdom of bacteria. Maybe there's some fungal genes that they found. But you can see about half of the bacteria are from this one phylum called Bacteroidetes, and then the other one are Firmicutes. That's about the other half. And then it gets smaller: class, Bacteroidea, Clostridia. Okay, so what does this all mean? This is the output. This is my qualitative, quantitative data, gave me numbers and described what was there and what I found. What am I going to do with all this data now? So now I want to analyze the data. Okay, so they actually take a step here and they show you a couple things about what that meant, what all those species mean. Okay, and here's some of the analysis. My gut score, I guess it's superb. It's in an ideal state. Keep that up. Have healthy average wellness score. And then I think this is really cool. They show the diversity score, like how many different species of bacteria are there. And this is 2 quantities that they measure in ecology. So richness, or the variety of species, and evenness, the amount of individual species. So if I had, let's say, 10 different varieties of bacteria, I could say that's pretty rich, and then it would be even if I had an even number of those bacteria in my gut. But let's say I had richness, but most of it was dominated by one type of bacteria, then my evenness would be lower. Okay, so now what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to now run my next part of this experiment, and I'm going to try to run a keto diet. So I'm going to try to basically cut out most sugar, so I'm only at 25 to 50 grams of sugar a day. And what I hope that you all are doing at home is writing down what you eat every day. And we're actually going to go through that process of looking at the nutrition labels and seeing what you see so that we can analyze it in groups on Friday. And what you'll start to notice when you go down this pathway of learning is that you learn a lot more about what makes up your food and what different micronutrients are present. So we have our macronutrients. There's 3 big ones. If you remember, that's carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. And then we have a bunch of micronutrients, and that's stuff like vitamin C, calcium, B12, folate, iron, potassium. And so maybe you already know a little bit about food and nutrition and what different foods are comprised of. And if you don't, we're going to learn a little bit more about it in our lesson. Okay, so here we go. Let's dive in. There is an important thing to note when you're doing this lesson. First, when we're here, you do not want to do this. It can be very tempting to just want to do the next lesson, but there's a tricky part here in that you actually need to